Welcome back to Leeds Lately for another episode of Dream Teams, this time with Andrea Russo. I'm sure you've seen him on Joe's channel, on Jer's channel, all around the Leeds scene. Famously, the only Italian Leeds fan. No, I'm sure there's more. But yes, Andrea, obviously you spent time being a social media manager at Reggiana, a professional football club in Italy. You've spent time as a first team coach for the youth basketball team in your local area, and yeah, done a whole host of things. But first of all, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Overall, good. I was really looking forward to this one because when history and football mix, I think this is the perfect mix. They are the two my main passions. Football and history. So I was really looking forward, and thanks for having me here.
Yeah, no worries. Happy to have you on. The first thing I'm going to ask you, which is something that we don't usually ask people, but that is just because of the situation that you are in. How did you become a Leeds fan?
Yeah, I got this question a lot, asked me a lot, and it's pretty normal to ask this one. The first thing is that the first football match I've seen on TV, as I can remember, is Leeds United AC Milan. This is the first football match I've ever seen on a TV. I was about 5 or 6 at the time. Yeah, 4 or 5, I think. And of course, I didn't remember it was Leeds first. I remember just this player and this match under the rain when a player shot from outside of the box and the keeper had this mistake. And I remember my father next to me.
It was Dida, wasn't it?
Dida and Lee Boyer, exactly. But so they were showing it in Italy, and I just remember my father laughing at Dida mistake. And years later, when I was already a Leeds fan, I went back to watch some games, of those times because I love their Leeds team. Really, I really love them. It's a team that embodies Leeds a lot after the Revy team. So when I saw again that goal from Lee Boyer, that it was like a Madeleine effort, the Proust one. Like my memory coming back and say, oh, that was the one.
Yeah,
that was that goal I saw, the first goal I can remember, and it was like sounded to me like it was destiny that I was destined to become a Leeds fan. But pretty basically, when I was, of course, a kid, I used to watch a lot of Italian football, but they were showing also in Italy some Premier League games.
Yeah.
So I saw some games. Of course, I wasn't a fan back then. Then there was this magazine called Guerin Sportivo, which used to cover a lot of the foreign leagues. And I remember reading it for the kids for the formations. So I knew Leeds back then, and there was also the highlights. But I really became a fan during the League One years because they started to show games properly, and I was about 13, 14 back then. So I remember the first games I used to watch with a consistency were the ones when we got promoted to the Championship, because I remember seeing the FA Cup game on TV here. And the Tottenham won, I think, also in the FA Cup. And the Bristol
was
won.
Was that the one where Luke Varney chipped the goalkeeper?
No. It was during the Grayson season.
Right.
So when we were promoted from League One to the Championship, I think it was 2009, 2010. Beckford, Becchio, that one. Vani, I remember him. Was good at Blackpool, but very he disappointed. Very disappointed performances at Leeds when they signed him under Warnock.
Yeah. It could only really go upwards from there. Could only get better from starting supporting Leeds when they were in the League One era, and obviously over the last 10, 15 years since then, it's been 14 years now, isn't it? As of next week or whenever it is, Christmas and New Year. It can only get better, and obviously you've seen Marcelo Bielsa come through, and you've seen some of the best years that Leeds United have had in years. But let's move that on nicely then into the team that you've picked as your Leeds United Dream Team. So the first thing we're going to do is ask you for your formation. What formation have you gone for?
Typical Italian, old-fashioned 1-4-4-2, and just because the two strikers that I've picked, I wanted to pick them both. So my ideal formation of football is 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-2-1 right now, but I wanted to keep it old-fashioned, and I picked 4-4-2 because of the two strikers. and also it's very balanced, I think.
Yeah, that's the word I would say for that formation is balanced. And you've got your wingers who are, yes, they're wingers, but they do provide a bit of defensive support as well. They're up and down, aren't they? Classic wingers, stay wide, up and down, cross balls into the box, help defend.
We can say too that this is a little spoiler. One of those two wingers was also tried as a wing back by Jesse Marsh. Just gonna say that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the players then. Who have you gone for in goal?
And goal, I think the best goalkeeper Leeds United ever had. I said it previously. I think the O'Leary team has a special place into my heart. So I've picked Nigel Martin. I think he was a great showstopper, great between the sticks. And if you look at the keepers that were in the Premier League during the late 90s and the early 2000s, he was consistently one of the best keepers. And there were keepers like Peter Schmeichel, for example, from Man United. But if you look at the coefficient of saves, he was always up there, And I think he was a guarantee, a guarantee.
He'll have been the keeper that you saw when you first started looking at Leeds, when obviously, like you said, you first started to be able to get Premier League coverage over in Italy, and you got your that magazine that you said as well, where they covered formations. And so he'd have been the guy then in that Leeds team, wouldn't he, to be the main shot stopper. And a lot of people have said how good he was in Europe as well. And I think he's I think he's underrated by fans of other clubs, to be honest. I may have mentioned this on one of the other episodes of Dream Teams, but basically, Ben Foster's podcast, the Fozcast, he did a top 10 goalkeepers of all time, and they had Nigel Martin as an honourable mention, but said he wasn't going to get anywhere near the top 10 really. But I think people sleep on him because, yes, it was a long time ago, but also because he played for Leeds, and people tend not to favour players who've played for Leeds. But from what everybody said, he's got to be up there with one of the best Premier League goalkeepers there's been.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, because if you look at this past tenure too, he was great for them too before he signed for Leeds. So if you look overall at his career, also on Everton, when he moved to Everton, I think he was 37. And he came back to Leeds and had a great game against us. So, and he played till 2006, I think he was. So over 40, I think, and he was great for them too. So honestly, if you look at his whole career, he was brilliant. And of course, probably is underrated, I agree. But also from a part of the Leeds fans, because I think it's a bit of a forgotten player sometimes when we mention the Leeds greats, because it's a goalkeeper, and goalkeepers, honestly, of course, you tend to look more at midfielders as strikers because they contribute more to goals and to define the score. But Martin was monumental to keep a clean sheet, and also in the run the Leeds made when we finished top at the end of the first part of the 2001-2002 season. He was a big part of that team. Let's not undervalue that. Of course, I think he was treated pretty unfairly when he left because of the great late Terry Venables now, because at the time he had just been the second choice keeper at 2002 World Cup, and he had a great season before when Leeds narrowly missed, again in the top places, and he was second choice for the whole season, and then he moved to Everton the next season, and he was great for them, despite his old age, at the time. But they stood up, and we went down the next season. So I think the best keeper, there are also other good keepers in Leeds history. I think Gary Sprague, John Lukic. Recently, I don't think we had very good keepers in terms of that type of ability and the type of talent.
Not that level.
No, not at the level. I agree. We had during when I was growing up, we had Paddy Kenny. I liked him because of his personality, I think. But I think the best of him, we saw that at QPR. Then we had Andy Lonergan, Kasper Schmeichel.
Kasper Ankergren.
Kasper Ankergren, Shane Higgs. I remember more Shane Higgs because when we played in those televised games in Italy, there was always Shane Higgs. I don't know why, because Ankergren, you remember in that season, they basically split the games because Ankergren, he wasn't fit sometimes. So Higgs plays some of those games. So I remember more Higgs And also, I used that team in FIFA, and I used to pick at the time. I was, I think in middle school, not in high school yet. So we used to play a lot of FIFA, and when I was picking Leeds, I was picking X-Side of Angry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Casper, but that was how it was at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that moves us on nicely then. Who is going to go in at the right back position?
There's only one choice for me. One man club, Gary Kelly. Of course, probably someone was going to say he's Irish biased because there's this myth going around the shows that I'm loving Ireland, and I can confirm that I really love Ireland, their people. I haven't been there, honestly, to be fair, but I've read a lot of their culture. I listen a lot of Irish music, also for folk music. So I really think right now and back then, if you look at the Irish national team, they have a lot of good players, and they had throughout history, like Liam Brady, Frank Stapleton, and of course Gary Kelly, another player undervalued and underrated, I think, by the Irish public in this regard, but held in high regards by Leeds fans. One man club, came to the academy. Consistency was the perfect example of a player from the 70s, from the Riviera in terms of mentality. Moved into the 90s and new millennium.
More into the modern type of football, because he could get forward as well, couldn't he? And back in the day, under Rivi and stuff, it wasn't really so much of an expectation, was it, to be able to go forward as a defender? You were kind of a defender, and you did your job defensively. But Gary Kelly could do both, and because everybody picks Gary Kelly, a question actually came up in that. How much do we think he would be worth? So each time somebody picks Gary Kelly, I ask them, how much do you think he would be worth in today's market, given how good he was defensively and going forward? I think it'd be a lot, right?
Yeah, it'd be a lot. It's difficult, because there are different markets back at the time. You remember that the record signing for Leeds United was Rio Ferdinand, and you look at what we spent for Rodrigo, for example. There's an ocean of difference. So if you look at the modern game in terms of the value the players have, I think 25 to 30, realistically.
Really?
Honestly.
Well, some people have said that he'd be upwards of 50, 60 million.
I don't think so, honestly, because it's not all stars and glitters,
Yeah, it's not a glamorous signing, is it? It's not
exactly.
It's not fashionable, really. But then maybe you are starting to see a little bit of a reinvention of that role with players like Trent Alexander-Arnold and people like Reece James and people like that, where they go, okay, that can be an interesting flair position as well, where they're playing amazing passes across the pitch and contributing towards goals and stuff as well. So maybe they're starting to change that. But like you say, at the moment, it's still not that much of a fashionable position. But Gary Kelly certainly did that role really, really well.
Yeah, and you know what? The comparison to the modern game can be Seamus Coleman for me. Also Irish player, I think, in terms of how he plays and how he can be adapted also in midfield sometimes. So I'm 30 probably. 30. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with 30 in terms of the modern value of Gary Kelly. But I agree with you overall. He started also as a midfielder, when he brought into the team, and for Ireland, I think he played in USA 1994 and in the 2002 World Cup as a midfielder, basically, because they had also Finnan on the right in 2002. But it was, if you look at, he lived it all. He broke through when we still had the players who won the title in 1992.
Yeah.
Then he was the crucial part of O'Leary's team, and then he stayed into the championship. And I'm really sorry for him that his final season was the one when we got relegated under Bates, with that game, final game against Ipswich, at Elland Road. So it's like a recurring pattern, Leeds great players finishing, like we said with Martin, with a not good sour, not good taste.
Sour taste in the mouth at the end of
Exactly.
It does seem to happen, doesn't it? Because it's quite rare that you actually get a player who gets a bit of a fairy tale ending with a testimonial and subbed off towards near the end of the game and everyone's clapping them and stuff. Obviously Pablo and Berardi kind of had that moment, but the stadium wasn't full, and so that's another one where it's like it's not quite what they would have deserved, really.
Click, for example. Click too, for example. They didn't announce that he was leaving, so everyone had left the stadium by then. Then they had that, reparatory sending off when they called him back when he was on holiday and the MLS hadn't started yet, so the crowd was able to salute him and thank him.
Yeah. Okay, then who are you going for next to Gary Kelly then in the right centre back role?
Right centre back, I think they can both play on one of the positions, but yeah, I'm gonna say Jack Charlton in this position. Yeah. Jack Charlton, of course, I haven't seen him play live
No.
because he was born in the he played in the 60s and the 70s. I was born in the 90s, but I think, of course, all-time record appearance holder for Leeds United, monumental in terms of his contribution. I also was looking at his stats recently, and I've seen that he scored also 96 goals.
Yeah,
as a centre back. So yeah, it's madness. It's madness. But I think,
how many games did he play? 740 something, was it? Or
773, I think.
More than I thought. Yeah, it's ridiculous, isn't it? You just would not get a player playing that many games these days, and especially not for one club. But he obviously World Cup winner as well, alongside his brother Bobby, who passed away recently. World Cup winner, won all manner of titles with Leeds as well, and just really summed up that era of football as well, didn't he? Just smoking a cigarette on the pitch after a game, and but still just being amazing. And I mean, I've told this story before, but Joe said that he heard a story that he used to hide behind a bush when they were doing the preseason running, and then get the bus, actually come out of the bush, get on the bus, and get back down, and then join in at the back of the group again. But then did things like that, but was still just amazing every Saturday.
Yeah, it was. He was, I think, the most similar type of player, because John Charles at the beginning of his career used to play also. He could play as a striker and as a defender. So I think when he played in the defense, Charles and Charlton, they were similar in terms of the type of physique. Of course, Charlton was slimmer, in terms of body type, but in terms of aggression and positioning and awareness, I think they were similar in terms of how they read the situations in defense. And of course, he was monumental. They had already lined up a replacement for when he left, in Gordon McQueen when he left. So it shows you how crucial he was in that formation. And I think it shouldn't be underlined that he grew up in a footballing family where he had there was the chance that he could have been overshadowed by Bobby Charlton, his more famous brother, of course, in England because of course of the 1966 World Cup. But I think the fact that he's held in high regard despite playing as a defender, of course, the goalkeepers and the defenders, they're not the glamorous positions in football. That shows you the magnitude of the player he was, and the many ones actually. Because I'm glad you mentioned also the fact that he was just himself. He was smoking on the pitch after the games, and there's also that picture, in front of the West Stand, in the old training pitch that was beside the West Stand, where now there's the parking lot, I think. Of him smoking, and there was that. It was the picture epitomizing the photo showing how Leeds was back then. There were a group of strong players, of strong men with mentality. There was him smoking with Leeds United and the West Stand
behind him,
at the back. But also there's also another picture, where there's Jack and Bobby looking at each other. Of course, Leeds United versus Manchester United. They're looking very firmly into each other's eyes, and that for me is the brotherly rivalry of the Roses rivalry. That's the rivalry. That's the picture of Leeds United versus Manchester United.
Fantastic. He also went on to manage Ireland as well, didn't he? So somebody put in the comments that it's rare to be an England and Ireland legend, but Jack Charlton managed to do both, and that's the measure of the man, really, how great he really was. But fantastic choice, and obviously complete club legend, one of the most iconic players in Leeds history. Fantastic choice.
And just to finish it off about Jack, Jack Charlton, he has a stand named after him. After all, And Ireland, he revolutionized them. And you said right, you were right in saying that it wasn't easy being an Englishman in Ireland back then because of the troubles, of course. And but he revolutionized Irish football. He brought players from abroad with Irish parents or grandparents and changed the mentality. So he was also naturalized as an Irish citizen, and that shows you the regard they have for him in Ireland. There's also a good documentary about that period called Finding Jack Charlton. It's really, really good.
Right. I think I've seen that before. I think it's on BBC. I think I've seen it. Yeah. So I might give that one a watch. Who's going to go next to Jack Charlton then?
The Chief. Has to be the Chief.
A legend in his own era as well.
Yeah, a legend in his own era. I have just 2 kids with a name on the back of Leeds. I have a lot of kids because, of course, I have a collection of kids. I really like bring all Leeds kids into it.
Yeah.
But I have just 2. One is the first Leeds kit I bought back in 2012. First internet order I made. I was 15 back then. It was in the second year of high school.
Yeah.
And I choose Paul Green at the back.
Right.
Very bad choice. But the second one I picked recently, this one, I was looking for it, is a Radebe shirt from 2003. So I have just 2 Leeds kits of the ones I have with the name on the back. Yeah. And that shows you the regard that I have for Lucas Radebe. It's very similar to Jack Charlton because he was a great player, but above all, a great man. And it shows you that he was the sporting idol, not Francois Pienaar, not Chester Williams, I think he was called, the rugby player of South Africa.
Yeah.
It was the sporting idol of Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
And they were undergoing the transition from the apartheid era to the, of course, modern era of South Africa. And they won the Rugby World Cup in 1995, and this is undervalued, the 1996 Africa Cup of Nations with Radebe as the captain.
Yeah.
So everyone remembers Francois Pienaar and the rugby team, but you should also remember Lucas Radebe, Phil Mazinga, Quinton Forge, and all those players in South African history. And what can you say about Radebe? He was one of the best defenders, not in the Premier League, in Europe back then, especially in the Champions League season. Of course, the sour taste is that he was marred during the later stages of his career by injuries. What player he could have been if he was injury-free? Because to me, if you saw highlights of him, I can compare him to Nesta in terms of Italian football. He was that good. He could have been that good.
Big compliment as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think he could have been that good if he was injury-free. Nesta was marred by injuries too, because in 3 World Cups, actually, Nesta now is managing my local team, Reggiana, in the Italian second tier. Yeah, in 3 World Cups, Nesta, he got injured in both threes, in all the 3 of them. So it was really, really unlucky. But Radebe, 1996, I think. Yeah, we signed him from Kaiser Chiefs in 1996.
And also before I was born.
Yeah, I was born in 1996 actually, so we're really, really close to in terms of age.
Yeah.
But Kaiser Chiefs, we signed him for the Kaiser Chiefs, and now there's a band Leeds, of course, called Kaiser Chiefs. So it shows you the magnitude of the
impact that he had.
The impact that he had is exactly in terms of his career in Leeds. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic choice, and I mean, people love him all around Leeds, and he still takes an interest in Leeds. There's still a 2-way relationship there with the club and with Lucas Radebe, and he gets sent shirts every time there's a new kit for the new season. It's always nice to see him post it and be like, I've got the new shirt. And yeah, like you say, marred with injuries towards the end of his Leeds career, but what a good player he was during his Leeds career. And a theme that has come out with a lot of these Dream Teams episodes is that Leeds fans just love a leader, love somebody who's strong, tough tackling, put it all on the line. And Lucas certainly summed all that up. So great choice picking Lucas Radebe. Who is going to be filling the final defensive position then at left back?
I was divided into this one actually, because of course, as you can see, they're all great players, but this is not the best 11, but my 11 of the art,
Yeah, your favorite.
Yeah, exactly. So I was divided into bringing Stuart Dallas in there or Gianni Alioski because of the written times, and Dallas is a leader, a silent leader actually. like Ancelotti will call him, the leader calmo, the silent leader.
Yeah, so they lead by example with their professionalism,
Exactly.
their attitude, and the way that they play as well, don't they? And that's a different type of leader, isn't it? To somebody who's shouting and controlling everything.
Yeah, exactly. They're two different type of players. Dallas is a silent leader on the pitch, so leading by example, and Gianni is a player you always need into the dressing room, and making jokes, but showing professionalism and attitude on the pitch. But actually, I've picked Ian Hart. I picked the uncle, and I have to pick the nephew in Gary Kelly and Ian Hart. Because Ian Hart, I think, when I watched that O'Leary team, that he was the player I liked the most, honestly, because of his free kicks. The one against Deportivo was brilliant. The one against Arsenal, he was probably a modern left back. He could have fit pretty well into the modern game, I think, in terms of the way he performed. So I picked another Irish player as two now, and a naturalized one in Jack Charlton. In your heart, I've picked the uncle at the right back and the nephew at the left back.
It's nice to have a free kick specialist in a team as well, isn't it? Because that's something I think we've not had over the last couple of years. I mean, we had Rafinha, but you could say that he was really good at free kicks, but he did just hit the bar every time. So technically they were off target. But
just the one against Michael against Leicester, I think, was the good one with the low shot.
Yeah. But I think, Ian Hart certainly brings that extra little bit of something, doesn't he, with his ability to take free kicks and stuff. So he'd be great in that left back role. Okay, so we're going for a 4-4-2, aren't we? So how do you want to do this? Do you want to go to your right midfield, and then we'll go across the central midfielders all the way to the left? We'll start with right midfield. Who have you gone for?
Yeah, right. I've picked, we just mentioned him, Rafinha.
Yeah.
For the contribution he made to Leeds in just 2 seasons, because I'll die on this hill. We stayed up because of Rafinha.
Yeah.
Under the first season under Marsh, because it was a recurring pattern. Give the ball to Rafa, and let's pray for the best.
Yeah. Well, you see, like the other teams that went down, they didn't have anybody of that level, did they, to try and drag them across the line? And we obviously had Calvin Phillips, who had his injuries at the time, but we had him. And we had Rafinha, who were both in that team to sort of drag us forward and be that next level higher in terms of performance. And those other teams that got relegated that season, they didn't have that, and we did. And so, like you say, I think there's a very strong argument for saying that Rafinha basically kept Leeds up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the first season when he arrived in England from Rennes, it took time for him because Bielsa needed time to insert into the team the new signings. He always acted like that but when he moved into the team, he performed straight away. That goal against Everton, I remember especially. Penalty against Palace, I think too. But yeah, he made the Brazil squad. That's mental to think about the fact that a Leeds player was into the Leeds squad. Into the Brazil squad, of course. But in the second season, it was total madness, and I think we should have looked for a replacement for Marsh straight away after we stayed up, because the signs were already there, and the tactics was basically narrow and give the ball to Rafa, but he performed, and he shows the passion that he had for Leeds. And still has, because if you see some of his Instagram stories that came up sometimes, he still has.
They're still watching and stuff.
Yeah, the sweatshirt of Leeds, the collar for the dog, with the Leeds badge on, in Barcelona. But yeah, I think I remember the game against Brighton when him and Calvin they stayed after the game into the pitch, and that picture of them two,
Rafinha sat down leaning up against the goalpost, and Calvin coming over with the sign, "Can I have your shirt, Rafinha?" And it's
Rafa make me happy. That one. They were the two players that carried that team. Of course, Calvin had his injuries back then, but he was the vocal leader, I think, into the squad. Because he was Leeds born and he really cared about Leeds. I don't get the bitterness, honestly, from people going at him because he left. I think there was already madness behind the scenes at the club in terms of the hierarchy So I don't think they offered him a contract renewal, and the Leeds wasn't going places really. So I get Rafinha leaving because, of course, we decided to cash in, but I think Calvin was looking for his career too, because you really care for a club, but the club has to go places, and Leeds wasn't going places, and that's why we're now in the situation we're in the Championship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Rafa 2 seasons, but the dribblings, the one-on-ones we saw, now we've seen that some of that again from Somerville, but yeah, the best dribbling in recent history in Leeds. He just loved to play, so has to be in the team 100%.
Yeah, fantastic, isn't he? And he was just like, he was a player who just got you to go, oh, something's happening, and he got you off your seat, didn't he? Just with that, the pace, the burst of pace, the ability to just nutmeg players and spin them, and just make players dizzy. They spin round. So yeah, that was that one. Yeah.
Also that against Norwich when Gala scored, it was Rafinha basically setting up the goal. That
run around the goalkeeper and then just flicked it across, and Gelhardt just knocked it in, and just that was when that famous Gelhardt celebration when his arms are just floating off behind him because he doesn't even know what to do. He's that excited, and he's just like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Rafinha causing another great moment there. Let's move on to the centre midfielder next to him, and then we'll go for the one that we've just kind of alluded to there, haven't we? So, who's the central midfielder next to him?
Yeah, one of those two. I went for 2 versatile wingers and 2 DMs. Basically, one of them can play box to box, but the one who is the playmaker is Calvin Phillips, of course. So I put him in there. I just love Calvin when he played for Leeds, because it was the fairy tale of the local boy, Leeds born, of course, with a particular story also that he recently told in his documentary on Prime. Watch it; it's really a great watch, looking at the person he is. Also, he's born, I think, in 1994 or 1995, so he's really the age group we're both into, so we can relate to him in terms of age. And honestly, if you look at his trajectory when he started with that debut against Wolves, I think it was, the managers like at the time before Bielsa, Christensen, and all of those,
Monk.
Monk,
Gary Monk,
Okaday. No, Okaday he didn't play under Okaday. I think it was Steve Evans. Steve Evans. Yes, I think. Yeah, and that Milanic and all those managers. Yeah, they tended to play him as in a different role, like box to box or more advanced midfielder.
Yeah, sometimes he even played in the number 10, didn't he? And he'd actually scored a couple of goals before Bielsa came in.
Yeah, he did, but it wasn't his role. And I think we all saw at the time before Bielsa came in that Ronaldo Vieira was the real player with a possibility to make it into the game.
I really liked Ronaldo Vieira. Just on him for a second, I really liked him, and I was really gutted when he went, because he had the potential to be such a good player for Leeds. And obviously his career hasn't gone massively well since, but I think he's doing better now, isn't he?
He's done better this season in the Italian second tier in Sampdoria. Now he's under Radrizzani again. So imagine leaving Leeds and finding yourself under Radrizzani again.
He's found me.
Yeah, exactly. I think he should have stayed in England in terms of the move he got, because the Italian football is really different, and he started well, but then he had problems. Then there's also a bias against foreign players coming from England. Now it's been lifted because of Tomori and Abraham, because the difference of rhythm and quality is way better in England. But in Italy, the managers look more at the tactics, and it's like a prison sometimes for players, in terms of they cannot go forward, they cannot go back, because they have to stick to the tactical instruction. And I think that's the situation Ronaldo Vieira found himself into at Sampdoria. Then moved to Verona and Torino. Now he's back at Sampdoria. He started well this season under Pirlo for them. We played Reggiana against him this week, lost to 1. He wasn't into the team because he's injured. I hope he was into the stands, because I would have really liked to to chat with him and really talk about Leeds. He was into if he followed the team despite being injured. But yeah, it was ahead of Calvin then, and Bielsa arrived and he put Calvin in that role, and he changed the career of Calvin, of course. And he performed on real levels there as a playmaker.
He set him on a path. Bielsa set Calvin Phillips on a path that took him all the way to being England's player of the tournament at a Euros where they got to the final, and that is unbelievable to set him on that trajectory. We won't talk too much about that final, but it set him on that path to become that player that was probably much more than he ever would have been if it had been any other manager in the world that had come into Leeds at that time.
Yeah, absolutely changed his career, and honestly, he played with a 4-1-4-1 formation because we had two players in Click and Pablo centrally going forward, and he just defended all means by himself, in front of the defense in terms of cutting passes lanes and defending.
That's what I find remarkable, because most teams who play a holding midfielder, they play more than one because they've got to cover that whole space across the pitch. And you see it now with Ampadu and Kamara, or Ampadu and Gray, or whoever sits in that role. Farke wants that whole area of the pitch to be covered by two of them, because that's how big the job is. But because the only teams where you see them play like that is Man City, with Rodri playing on his own back there, really, and the other players kind of just all go forward. But that's just because they're so dominant. So Bielsa obviously had this belief that Leeds would just be the most dominant side in the Championship, and we were, really, and it allowed Calvin Phillips to be on his own in there and just do everything. And he was fantastic at it.
He was everywhere. And really, it was unfortunate for us that we missed him for a number of games, a consistent number of games into the season when we stayed up at Brentford, but going back at the Euros, I think he was unreal with rising to the in midfield. And I remember in the final, watching the final when he made that shot from outside the box. I would have been happy for him, but it would have been terrible for us. So I remember being split into. And I never, of course, you always keep it professional, but I remember that time, I decided to write to him on Instagram because I was really relating to him in terms of the tournament he played. And I just wrote, every Leeds fan is proud of you, because we won, of course. I wanted to, because there were also abuse towards England players, I think, online. And of course, there was also players not putting the medal away, and after the ceremony. And Calvi was one of the few that stayed and watched Italy lifting the trophy up. So it was really professional and a really nice gesture from him. And also was the first one to go towards Saka after he missed after Donnarumma saved that penalty. So I think he'll be back at Leeds in the future, and we'll see him back probably if we go up top, when we go back to the Premier League. But right now, I think there's the rumors about him moving to Juve in January, but it can be a good move for him. But I would go honestly to Newcastle or Aston Villa if I were him, because Italian football is different, but the rhythm is low. So I think right now, for the type of football he plays, he might suit him actually.
Yeah, especially with his injuries and stuff as well. It might be better for him to have that sort of position where he doesn't have to overstretch himself, go into things that aren't in his zone, if you will, if it's with his rigid formations and where he should be on the pitch. It might be better for him not to have to overstretch himself and cover too much of the pitch. And maybe if they're a little bit more, like you said, a little bit more conservative with the way they play, a bit more pragmatic, then he might suit that a little bit until he's back up to his best, really. But fantastic choice in Calvin Phillips. I love Calvin Phillips, so always happy when someone chooses him. Who's going to go next to him?
Yeah, my box-to-box midfielder, there was also the possibility of putting David Batty in there, but I went for the art here and went for the Morley boy, Johnny Howson. Because, another player underrated and probably not forgotten, because recently when he came back, I don't know, with Boro, he was
I think he's 36 now, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah,
And I think he still had a really good game for Borough. He was one of Middlesbrough's best players in that game, and he was like commanding their midfield, playing lovely passes around. I was going, all right, go on, Johnny, you still got it, haven't you?
You know what? Because Groove is not playing, honestly, I'll have him back, honestly, as,
Yeah.
as an alternative. I'm just saying, but I won't rule it out. We need leaders into the team, and if we're missing an option from the bench, I think he can still do it, honestly, in the Championship. Of course, the Premier League is a different level if we go up. But yeah, Hausen, I absolutely love the way he played, being everywhere, going up and down the pitch when he was a teenager. So a similar trajectory to Calvin Phillips. Going into the team, local boy. And
sometimes it's just the wrong era, isn't it, for a player?
Exactly.
And sometimes they could have been so much more. But if they were in the right era under the right manager, and it's just a shame that, because Johnny Howson was a really, really talented footballer, but he just didn't really get the chance to grow with Leeds because Leeds weren't very good at the time.
Yeah, it's the same for him, Byram, and Snodgrass, for example. They made it into the Premier League, and also Bradley Johnson, for example.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it with Leeds, and that's really unfortunate. Also, Byram is back right now, but we miss those players. That side, if you look at the side that won the promotion to the Championship in 2010, Bradley Johnson played in the Premier League, Snodgrass, Hausen, also Bacchio briefly, Beckford moved to Everton straight after. So it's really unfortunate and lucky that we had a team of youngsters, of young players that could have took us like Norwich did, for example, from the League One Championship and then Premier League, and we could have had the core of the team in the Premier League, strengthening, of course, the formation with Premier League ready players, but we had that core already there,
Yeah,
and that's really unfortunate.
We couldn't make that leap, could we, to get them there? And actually, your next player is somebody who was also, you could go say, completely came under that umbrella as well. Who have you gone for at your left midfielder? Because this brings straight into this conversation, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. He could have he played mainly on the right sometimes, but he could have played also on the left because he was versatile. Rob Snodgrass, of course, went for the art again here.
Yeah.
Of course, there were other good players like Eric Bakke. Also, I have to say, despite the fact that I despise completely the person, Eric Ewell, because of the way he left Leeds, going to Liverpool with that Mandich affair, when the 2 million going into the agent, really probably the most hated and unliked players in Leeds history because of that.
Yeah.
But I went for Rob Snodgrass because I think he was he had some things of Rafa before Rafa, honestly, if you look at it.
That's literally what I was going to say. He was the Rafinha of his era because a lot of the time it was pass the ball to him and hope something can happen. And also he had that ability to beat a man and put the ball into a really good area in the box.
Yeah, him and Gradle, for example, I remember, there were similars in that regard. Remember the penalty against Arsenal, also an iconic moment of that era, but it's not because he was, as you said, a dribbler. He always excited you, in turn when he got the ball, because he as a proper Scot, with a mentality, he would have gone straight into the defender trying to get past him, and that's the type of player everyone likes, so a similar thing to us, and unfortunately we didn't see him in the Premier League, and he was another one of the players going back to 2002, players sacrificed under the Ken Bates stewardship to raise money and not for invest it into the squad, but into the boxes, into the stand.
It's a shame, really, isn't it? It's a shame because so players like them were brilliant. Let's move on to your strikers then. Pick either of them and just go for it.
Yeah, I went for the art again. There were players like Viduka, of course, and recently, I think also Rob Walsh as plays off the art, because of that play of run.
Yeah.
But I went for. Let's start with the left.
To be honest, we can talk about both of them at the same time, can't we? Because they played together. So, who are both of them? I know you just said Becchio. Who's the other one?
The other one is, of course, Jermaine Beckford. So that striking partnership, the Saturn and Shearer of Leeds, the Colin York
Yeah.
of Leeds United recently, you know, because we didn't have a proper striking partnership ever since because of technical formations with one striker. And, you know, times when we had, for example, Elijah Diouf, Steve Morrison, probably Ross McCormack was the good one. You know, the last good one partnership after that one was McCormack and Smith. Of course, Matt Smith, not Alan Smith, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Becky and Beckford, you know, gave us some of the best moments before the Premier League return. The fact that both were signed from, you know, unknown clubs. Becky from Merida in the Spanish third tier, and Beckford from Wenston in lower league, you know, and they are icons. Beckford, you know, he was another talking point here is that when we got promoted, he carried us. Then went ghosting for a period, and then reappeared into the final stages with that performance against Bristol Rovers. But of course, you know, some of the most iconic moments, the goal at Old Trafford, the game against, you know, Norwich when the Fraser Foster misplaced the goal kick and he went straight into Beckford and he scored. The FA Cup match against Tottenham. So there's many moments. Also the interview, you know, in 2008.
What shirt am I wearing?
What shirt am I wearing, bro? Are you serious? Yeah, that is an icon and it's still connected to Leeds, you know. Also Luciano, you know, that Italians and Argentines are like brothers, you know. The Argentines are basically Italians who speak Spanish, literally. So also Luciano Vecchio, as you can guess from the surname, like more than 60% of the Argentines has Italian heritage origins. So Luciano was a clinical finisher, you know, and they both improved, you know, looking at the way they started their career at Leeds, and they were lethal, cynical. Really unlucky that they got into the wrong area, you know, because we saw Beckford didn't renew his contract and went to Everton, of course, because he had the offer and he was working taking it, you know, because when the Premier League called at the time, you couldn't say no. You know, you went from a newly promoted club to a Premier League side.
There was no possible vision at that point, really, was there, of Leeds getting promoted? So it wasn't like a player leaving in the Bielsa area to go to the Premier League, knowing that we might get promoted the next season. It was like, so because there's new fans of Leeds who maybe would still think that was a bit almost of a traitorous move, but it's more that there was just no possibility that we were going to get promoted back to the Premier League anytime soon. So they had a chance; they had to kind of take it.
Yeah, and you know they were forced sometimes by the club and the Bates and the GFH. You know, for example, Vecchio, we made a straight swap with Steve Morrison with Norwich. So it shows you the level of capability and you know, competence at the time of the club. You know, swapping a striker, banging goals in with a striker not playing well. Since the League One days, when it was at Millwall, you know, at Norwich at the time, you know. But yeah, I think they were heroes, Vecchio and Beckford, because they play with the art on their shirt, you know. They got Leeds, despite not being born in Leeds. One born in Cordoba in Argentina, and the other one in London, I think. Ealing, I think. Ealing, I don't know.
Ealing, I think it is, yeah.
Ealing, yeah. So that's also the problem of the tube station when I go to London. Sometimes Marylebone, you know, there's also those names, you know. But yeah, they're proper legends, and I don't think we had. Of course, Bamford had a good season when we got to the Premier League, and Roof was good, but we didn't have proper strikers after them. I think. Yeah.
No, not out and out strikers, proper clinical finishers, and
yeah.
Arguably, Joel Piroux is probably the first one who's in that kind of mold, but he's not even been playing as a striker, but we won't go into that too much. So usually we say that you are the manager and you get to pick how you want your team to play. So are you wanting them to play Bielsa-esque football, or are you wanting them to play a little bit more pragmatic Italian style football, or how would you like them to play?
Yeah, I would like to play him with Bielsa type of football, honestly, because best manager I've seen for Leeds. Of course, there were not much contenders, of course, apart from O'Leary,
No.
because we had.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you did mention you like the O'Leary era, didn't you? So he was up there, was he, to pick?
Yeah, I think he was up there, and also Simon Grayson, because of the emotions he gave me when he managed Leeds. But after him, I like Brian McDermott, honestly. But apart from him, also Christensen was a good person, but probably sacked too early, I think.
Yeah, because he was a bit of an unknown, wasn't he? Because we got him from the Cypriot League.
Upper Nicosia, yeah.
Yeah, and so he came in as a bit of an unknown, and we didn't really know what he was about. But he came in with some new ideas, and he actually did really well at first, didn't he? But he had a drop off towards the end of his season, and then that was enough for them to say, "No, sorry, you're gone." But yeah, I think. Do you know where he is now? Because I feel like
I think he's managing in one of the Caribbean's national teams. I think
Curacao,
maybe. No, Curacao is Libo. I think. I think Christensen is managing Panama, probably.
Right.
Panama.
Okay. I was thinking that he could have been a good coach. He was on a good trajectory, and I think we kind of may have not helped that very much by sacking him after that amount of time. But yeah, so and then obviously as well, Bielsa is your favorite manager. So yeah, that is an excellent team. Obviously, everybody watching will be able to see that on screen now. Fantastic team from Andrea. Is there anything you want to plug? Want anyone to go and do? Is just go and follow you on Twitter, I guess, or X as they now call it.
Yeah. If you want to read some of my opinions, just I just like chatting about football, of course. So I just tend to give my point of view, of course, on Joe's channel, everywhere, basically, on Danny's channel, on Mac's channel, of course, right now. But I just like chatting about football with everyone. I always like English football. I wasn't able to follow it as a journalist, and it's very different from Italian. Sometimes you undervalue, I think, in England, the gift you have in following English football, because you can feel it as a sense of a community every day of the week. In Italy, we just live for that, I think, on match day, because the clubs are not involved into the community during the week. They don't have content during the week. I tried to do that when I was at Reggiana, but overall, it's not going in that direction in Italy, and that's why also we're going on a downgrade spiral in terms of Italian football. We are at the top in the 90s and the early 2000s, but right now in England, not just because of the investments. Everyone says that because there's more money, more TV rights, but it's also because of the way the English people live football every day of the week, and how you are able, like we're doing in this video, to mix history and football, and always remember in the past and how you got there in terms of the identity and the culture and the philosophy of the club. And that's the thing that I value the most about English football. And you can see books behind me. I read a lot about, of course, right now I'm reading about, John Charles, but also Argentina. But overall, I read a lot about history of English football, because really, I think it's a gift you have living it week in and week out, honestly.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you very, very much for joining me, Andrea. It's a fantastic team. It's been a great chat. Thanks for coming on the channel. Like I said before, everyone, make sure you go and follow Andrea on X/Twitter. Hit that big red button down below for this channel, and I shall see you next time on Leeds Lately.